Welcome to Defiance of Silence. I'm Valerie, your host, a veteran, nurse, and a survivor. This is a space for sacred witnessing, for stories often carried quietly, and for the people who hold them, for survivors, healers, and witnesses. Here we stand against the silence that isolates and honor the silence that allows us to truly be heard. Some episodes in this season will focus on sexual trauma and forensic realities. Others will explore moral injury, grief, and the cost of caring deeply in a world that can wound. You're invited to listen at your own pace, pause when you need to, and take what serves you and leave the rest. A gentle note before we begin. This podcast includes conversations about trauma and abuse. Please listen with care and honor your well-being. Thank you for being here and witnessing today's conversation. Hey, everybody. So season 1 is done. I don't really have appropriate words to express how I really feel about how everything went and just how grateful I am that people showed up and wanted to talk about this stuff. It blew me away, to be honest. I just want to honor you as witnesses for showing up and listening to my friends, my guests, just these human beings that were willing to be so vulnerable and show up and just share a little bit of their story with us. I know that it changed my life in ways I wasn't expecting. So I just wanted to come on and give a little bit of closure to the season and just reflect on some things that I felt were meaningful throughout the season and answer a couple of questions and give you kind of a vision for what's going forward for season 2. Season 2 is coming out this week, and I wish I could tell you what's coming in season 2, but I want you to be surprised because I've already had guests coming on and just discussions are just getting deeper and more meaningful. And the feedback that I've gotten from people has been incredible. And this is just a nod to people telling the truth. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. I just want to say that this has been all about you. And the fact that you're showing up and listening, you're teaching me something. And I hope that you're learning something from our guests and from the time that's spent putting out this information and helping people to understand what being a witness is. I really have been surprised at myself. There's some things that I've learned that I was shocked to know, like maybe I could do better at that. And it's been really, really good and really healing. So I want to think of this session just real quick, not a long one, just thinking about questions that kind of lived under the season, like things that people maybe asked. I'm like, man, I didn't talk about this. So I really just want to honor you guys as listeners and witnesses because I know that you guys were holding these stories too. And so I just want to say before we move forward, I just want to pause and look back, not to really summarize the season, but just to integrate what we've learned and highlight some things that each guest brought to my life and hopefully to yours. Creating this podcast and this first season was never about content. It was more about just creating a place where truth could land safely and that people could hear maybe a piece of themselves in every single story. And sometimes the most honest responses are those that just kind of come off the cuff. And I know I'm not always the best at articulating things. And it's really funny how you listen to yourself when you record something like this or you're a guest on a podcast. And my guests have all kind of said the same thing, like, man, I didn't realize that I sounded like that, or maybe I need to look at that. And so I just want to thank you for your grace, for giving me permission to show up as my authentic self and just hold the space and teach everybody to the best of my ability what it's like to be a survivor. And I'm just so thankful. Like, I truly am. So one of the reasons that this podcast was started was just because I know what it feels like to hold a story that didn't have a home, as a survivor, as a healer, as just a human having an experience on planet Earth. Like, sometimes we hold things that we don't know how to tell and how to share. And I just knew what that felt like. And so I wanted to give a space for that to occur. And this season did surround mostly sexual trauma, or really all of sexual trauma. And those are not easy things to hear, and as a nurse, I've witnessed pain from both sides of the room. as myself and as a provider, as a caregiver, as, somebody that works in that space. And I just didn't want to create something that was loud and overbearing and like creating this content that people would generate clicks and like, did you hear this terrible story? It's not about that. It's about creating something honest and creating something steady that people could breathe in, and listen to the story and hear something that reminds them of themselves, if that makes sense, and that they see parts of their story in each of my guests' story. So this space really is for survivors and healers and listeners and witnesses. And most importantly, it's for the parts of us that are both. Some of us carry stories, some of us have stories, and all of us have been wounded in some way or another. So this is really just a space for us to learn together that we can be stronger together and that we don't have to suffer alone. And that's the whole point of defying silence and being a sacred witness. Some of the things that surprised me the most in this season was actually how personal it was. Even for me, like talking about myself was not the priority. And it was so refreshing to really listen to what someone else had to say and just learning how to hold space even in a deeper way and the pacing of everything and just giving people space and time to share their stories. This work doesn't just live in this microphone and this space. It lives in the body. We carry the story. It lives in between episodes. So it's not something that I can just shut off. And so that surprised me quite a bit, that sharing the space and having these conversations that really just fill my cup and it just motivates me, because, you just know you're not alone. And so having someone else to hold that space and to be able to see each other and hope that somebody's getting something out of these conversations, because we didn't have them for nothing, and a lot of times we stopped recording and we're just crying and it was beautiful. So that surprised me the most was just how much lived in between the episodes. You can't really compartmentalize this stuff. And if you're in this kind of work, I guess you probably already know that. And this was newsflash to me, I guess. And then this season, really, what it asked of me was to slow down and to trust silence and not perform and just practice what I'm asking other people to do. And, being vulnerable and saying, man, I'm not good at some of these things. Like I've definitely said some things wrong and done some things that have caused harm to maybe myself or others. And it's given me a chance to look at that and really just dig in even further into how to hold space with other people and to let them know that they're not broken and that their reactions do make sense and that being witnessed doesn't require fixing. And being a fixer, I want to fix people. And so this has been a big challenge for me too. And I really appreciate my guests for coming on and just being themselves and unapologetically telling their truth. And I truly have no words to express gratitude for that. And, some other things I wanted to address was, one question I received is, what if listening brought up things for me? And my response to that is, then something honest is happening. And you definitely deserve support in it. You're not meant to carry this awakening alone. So as I say over and over, like find a trusted friend, find a therapist. If therapy is not something that you think you can handle right now or you can't afford, start building your tribe. There are things that you can do. And those feelings that get brought up for you, they have to be processed through your body. And you can't do it by yourself a lot of times. So it just means that something honest is happening. And that's the best way I can describe it, is that maybe, just maybe, you're starting to look at reality and see what is really going on here. And I know that some things happened and came up for me too, which I'm digging into a little more in season 2. And I'm excited about my growth in that area as well. I have to tell you what's changing in season 2. The heart of the podcast is going to stay the same. It's just that this container, this place that is created, may widen a little bit. So sexual trauma still is going to remain an honored and central focus, but we're also going to hold some space for grief and moral injury and the unseen cost of caring, and maybe even the unseen cost of being on a healing journey. Like, what does that do to your family? So there's some good conversations coming up, and I cannot wait for you to hear them. And this allows for some expansion. And that's something that really surprised me as well, is people would reach out to me and say, I really want to share my story, but I don't have sexual trauma. And initially I thought, well, then maybe this isn't the space for that particular story. But as those things begin to unravel and kind of come to light, I started realizing that there is a bigger conversation that needs to be had here. And maybe I can hold that space. Maybe, just maybe, I could be open to the possibility that that might be what we're going to do. And maybe that's what God is asking me to do. I don't know, but that's what's going to go on for season 2. We're going to have a lot more space for other conversations. So if that perks your ears a little bit, please reach out. If you have something you want to share, send me an email, send me your thoughts, and you can reach me at Valerie at defianceofsilencepodcast.com. It's also in the show notes, and we have an Instagram page as well. And I do all these things myself, so give me some grace with that. I respond as often as I can and as quickly as I can. Some things I want to mention in regards to my guests, and just a quick kind of recap for those of you that maybe didn't hear every single episode, but I really just want to acknowledge what I learned from each of my guests as a thank you and just a special nod to them for being so open and honest with us. Amber came on the show. She was my first guest. And, I took from her that I got to be where my feet are. I got to be here now. I can't live in the past and I can't live in the future. And it's so easy for me to get caught up in that. And if you have not heard that episode, I highly recommend. It's episode number 2. Next was Leah. Her story was a story of pure resilience and fight. And she's the strongest woman that I know. But one thing that she said to us is, you're not going to beat me and I'm going to know everything as a kid. So she grew up and learned to write her own story. And now she motivates others to find their magic. And something that was brought up after Leah and I had our beautiful conversation on the podcast is she had some more layers of grief that came up for her. And being able to share her story with you guys and be witnessed gave her permission to process that grief. And that is exactly what this space is for. And so thank you for witnessing her. And I am so honored that this space was able to create that for her. And then we had Susan. She brought to life that sometimes people don't always think what happens to them may be trauma or maybe an assault, but it's definitely something that wasn't their fault and shouldn't have happened. And as you start to realize that, then you have more questions. And her faith was a central portion of her healing. And I know that resonated with so many. And I have to share a little tidbit that some of these episodes went worldwide, and that was one of them. And so that was pretty amazing. Haley is a nurse that she really touched my heart more than I can even express. And maybe it's because I'm a nurse too, but her episode really hit me in the heart because she said, I have to be vulnerable enough to be seen. And what that means is that she shows up for her coworkers and allows them to show up as themselves and who they are without judgment. And she loves them for how they show up. And that really spoke to me. And I hope that it spoke to you too. And since Haley being on the podcast, she has started a program at her own work to allow her coworkers to have a safe space to decompress. And she's doing mindful moments with them, and her love and compassion for her community of nurses and healthcare providers has grown. And it's just powerful. And it brings me to tears to think about how many people will be affected by Haley's beautiful gift to her coworkers. And she said, Val, it's because you asked me, what am I doing for my coworkers? And so having this conversation with me, I challenged her in that, not even knowing that I was doing that. So Haley, I wish you the best in that. And I know your coworkers are so lucky to have you. Just super proud of that girl. Miss Lucy had this long, nonlinear road of healing. And I admired so much her gut level honesty of like, look, I'm suffering. This is what's happening. And I'm helping others, but I couldn't help myself. And she was so open and honest about that journey that it resonated with a lot of people. And they too were able to take a look at themselves and say, maybe, just maybe, there's some things going on here that I haven't wanted to look at. And Miss Janine, self-compassion was her superpower. And she had to learn to do that. So something I took from that was that it doesn't come easy and it doesn't come by itself. To have self-compassion takes a lot of work. It's not easy to do that. You have to change that tape that's playing on in the back of your mind that says you're not worthy or you're not good enough or you made a mistake. And she exemplifies somebody who has self-compassion. And she's the first person to encourage others to have self-compassion as well. And I hope that you took that from her story because it was powerful. Then we had Miss Rachel, who I have to say, and I don't know if we talked about this during her episode, but she's one of the reasons that I wanted this space to be created for loved ones, because she herself is a survivor, but maybe not of sexual trauma. Her spouse had trauma, and she, because she loves this person, has had to navigate that for her children and her family. And there's something that's powerful about a loved one who could say to me, hey, there's not a space for people that love a survivor. There's really not that much of a space. There's still grief for them too. How do we teach our kids to not have shame about these things and find safe people and still navigate the difficulties of marriage and all of those things? And I am so honored that she gave us the opportunity to witness. Becca came on and talked about healing being a gift. And the reminder that I took from her is that, hey, when these things come up for me, this is another chance for me to learn something about myself, and that thing will push me forward. And I will do bigger and better things because I grew from those situations. And she's the perfect example of that. And I'm just so thankful, truly, that you all had a chance to hear even just a little bit of her story. If you haven't heard her episode, go back and listen. It's episode number 8, and you won't be sorry. And she is an amazing human being, which leads us to Miss Lauren, who wrapped up our season. She's a therapist, very compassionate, just a beautiful soul who wants nothing more than to share with you guys, the witnesses, that there's hope and that there are ways to overcome the situations that you found yourself in. And she also helped me to understand that therapists are people too. They hold things, they care about things, and they have to release things too. So I hope that if you haven't listened to every single one of those stories, that you find the time to do so if it feels right for you. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. But just know that this space exists for those stories to be told and for those stories to be heard. And I'm just so grateful and so honored that you all would listen. And I know I keep saying that over and over. I think you get it. I'm grateful, but I really, really am. And I think that this podcast has been a gift, and I will keep doing it as long as the stories keep coming. And I just want you to know that I love you. I'm thankful. And we're going to bridge right into season 2 without a blink. So you're going to get episode 1 of season 2 in the middle of this week, and you will not be disappointed. I promise you. So please keep coming back for yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to each other, and know that you are worthy of being witnessed. And I am here. Very easy to find if you need me. And I'm just honored, so honored. So with that being said, take a big deep breath, blow it out, give yourself a hug, a high five, a pat on the back. Know that you are loved, and I cannot wait to see you in season 2. Thank you for being here. If this conversation brought up difficult feelings, please take care of yourself in whatever way you need. I welcome you to carry forward what feels steady and release what isn't yours to hold. If additional support would feel helpful, consider reaching out to a trusted friend, a professional, or a resource in your community. Healing is not a straight line, and you do not have to journey this alone. If this space has been meaningful for you, you're welcome to reach out. And if listening quietly is what you need right now, that's enough. You're right where you're supposed to be. Thank you for witnessing with me today. And until next time, remember that you are loved and worthy of being witnessed.